Okay, guys. Well, this is that Prentice 620 that I looked at a while ago. Okay, they originally called me because there was a hose. If you don't know what this is a feather buncher. Okay, basically, a lot of guys that don't know what these are. I've actually talked to a guy last night in New Mexico. Told him I was going to work on one of these. He didn't know what one was. You know, I can understand that, probably being in New Mexico where there's no trees. But anyways, this is a feather buncher. It'll grab the tree. This is a hot saw. See this? It's got a great big bar and a chain on it, just like a chainsaw that's run off a hydraulic motor. And then this cylinder will come out and zzz, and it'll cut the tree. This grapple will grab it and lay it, and then they can grab the tree and lay it down. So there's a lot of different heads you can put on these. You can put a circular hot saw on it instead of that bar saw or hot saw there. There's processor heads, which are very, very expensive, and we'll talk about that. But this thing here, they bought this thing, and these kids went into partners on this, and they're good guys. They just, you know, they're young, and they kind of got screwed, kind of like the guy with the Peterbilt, the kid with the Peterbilt. You know, they bought it. They didn't go up there to look at it in Canada where they bought it from, because to go across the border, they told them they had to have a vaccine shot, and they said they're not doing that. Piss on them, we're not doing that. So they bought it, and they got it trucked down here. But it had a processor head on it, and they wanted 80 grand for the processor head, and those processor heads are expensive, and they didn't need the processor head. Anyway, I bought this. I don't think any of this stuff was on it. These boys, they put the hydraulic motor on it and the bar, and got all that set up. Anyhow, they got all that set up, but it's been a nightmare because those guys, when they sold it, they pulled the processor head off, and in the process of doing that, they cannibalized everything. They just were in a hurry to get it on the truck, and they just ripped shit out of it and ripped all the wires out of the controls. It's a disaster. I came out and looked at it when I replaced the one hose up here, and then there's a limit switch here. Okay, this thing runs 540 degrees total rotation. It's underneath this cap right here. Okay, we've got that fixed. What that does, there's two micro switches there that run off a screw. There's a little gear that runs off the ring gear here on the swing gear. And then it's got a screw basically with a nut that runs up and down this thread. And when that thing, it does 540 degrees of total rotation. So you can start out from the front. Say these here are where the finals are. So this can be the front of the machine. And then you can start out here and you can go clear around. So that would be 360 degrees. So I think what it does, yeah, you can go, I'm trying to think this through in my head. So you go around, that would be 180, then you can go to 270, but then you can come back around like this, and then you can come around back to 270 over here. So that'll give you your 540. So it's not like a excavator to where it has a rotary distribution manifold. All these hoses in here have swivels on them, and it's hard to see it here, but these Temcos or Prentices or whatever you want to call them, feather bunchers. See these huge cylinders here? The cab is leveling. You can level your cab. If you're on steep terrain and you're logging on steep terrain, you can level your cab out to wherever you're logging at. So these boys have been trying to do a lot of their work themselves, and I understand, but now he says, we're lost. He said, and I understand why, because when these guys over the years, this logging outfit, whoever had this Temco here, I call it Temco. It's actually a Prentice 620 FB feather buncher, that I just call it Temco for short. Temco's actually a brand, but anyways, this is actually a Temco head here. It's an old Temco head. But this thing's all screwed up. The plumbing's I have to get a ladder. We got to get that anyway so we can climb up here on the boom. But I mean, we started labeling stuff. I don't know what these guys have done, and since then it's been a while since I've been out here, but he said nothing's working. Nothing's working right. And they're lost anyway. And he said one of the pumps doesn't seem to be working correctly, and he said the plumbing's all screwed up. These guys over the years have bypassed hard lines and put hoses in places of hard lines, and they've got it ported to some of the valve blocks back here in different spots that shows differently in the book. And he finally had come to the conclusion. He said, Warren, just go out there, fix it. We need to run this thing. We need to get going. He said, we've been dicking with this thing. And yeah, see, I traced a bunch of stuff out, and we labeled some stuff that one day I was here, and things going down here were all backwards, and it's a mess. So we're going to get the book out, get the ladder out, and we're just going to start gutting it, and we're going to plumb it the way the book says and get this thing right and just do it. So here we go. This is going to be a project. So let's start identifying stuff so we know what the hell we're looking at. Pump number 1, right hand track. Pump number 3 is right below it, left hand track. This is a Lin pump. This is for the saw and leveler, this pump. Left hand Lin. Right hand Lin, left hand Lin. Let's see here. Let's go look at it. Oh. I tried to clear a bunch of that shit out of my way when I walked in here so I'm not tripping over it. Okay, so this is going to be, obviously this is a right hand propel, left hand propel, left hand Lin pump. This is going to be for the saw and leveler, and this is going to be the other one over on the other side is going to be the other Lin pump. Okay, so now that we know what pumps we're looking at and what we're doing, that's kind of identifying and knowing what the hell you're looking at. I know that there was a lot of stuff on the boom that was wrong. The things here were backwards. The pressure and returns and everything on here were backwards according to what the book says. Salt pressure, tool base. Okay, so what you got to do is identify these guys. You know, you got to. So you look at these, so serial number units with serial number 53974, 5398. I know this one was trying to remember where that serial number was located at on this one. I think it was right up in here, I thought. Where was it at? Ow! I thought it was right up in here, but it just makes a huge difference on this one with the serial number break. I can't remember where in the hell it was. I don't remember. Okay, so we got a 53729 serial number. This is where things, when we were looking at the attachment, stick boom hydraulics. So this is a 53279? So is that early or late? 53729. Earlier or late serial number? So 53729, 53991, and after 53983, and before 53974. 53974. Okay. What we got here? Trying to figure the serial number breakout because we got to make sure. 53729. Okay, so what category are we going to be in? 53729. 53983 and before. What's EXE? What the hell is that supposed to mean? Drawing the main boom and cylinder, hydraulic manifold and boom connections. Early unit shown. Attachment hydraulic connections for intermediate unit. Serial number 53974, 53984, and 53990 are the same as shown in this illustration. Okay, so we get an early serial number. So, which is going to be the same as this one. Okay, now that we've got that figured out, we can start plumbing and figuring out what we've got going on here. So if you're looking here, okay, you're going to have saw return, gather rod, gather base, bunch rod, saw base, okay. What we decided to do the last time I was here, this head, the bunch, what the bunch is when you get a bunch of pecker poles, what we call them, little trees, and you bunch them and then saw them. The bunch arm is not big enough. It's counterproductive. It doesn't, I said take it off. I mean, it's a waste of time. And so basically just using the saw head and the tool base. And what I got to explain to you what they're calling, so you know. Bunch rod, bunch base, right? Okay, so bunch rod and bunch base, what they're calling, where's the cylinder at? So what they're calling this the base. That's the rod end, this is the base. That's what they're saying there. Okay. So we got to look at these hoses right here. So they're saying the saw return is on top. And as you can see, we trace this out. These are backwards. This is the pressure line, this is the return line. So there's where things are not jiving. So we got return, gather rod, gather base, bunch rod, saw pressure. We got a K-strain, rotate rod. So I think what we need to do is, so let's get the pressures and returns. Let's get all this stuff. I mean, we need all this right. This is all fucked up, you know? So we need to come back into here is where we need to start from here. So what we're gonna have to do is get up here, pull this plate off, because this is all backwards here. Everything's backwards. We traced this out and things are all screwed up here. Everything's backwards. Nothing seems to be plumbed right. 3/4, what size are these? Those look like maybe 5/8 or something like that. Pull them all off. We'll start figuring this thing out. Okay, let's gotta be careful here. There's just hoses laying in here, but originally they were using hydraulic hoses as conduit for the processor head and all the wires that went to it. So that's another thing. And if you're not going to be doing that, then don't have that shit in there and creating more confusion. Get rid of it if you're not going to use it. You just got to start from scratch, and we know there's a whole bunch of stuff that's plumbed wrong. So these here, there was a junction box that they had a bunch of wires and stuff run through. But these two here, these were used as conduit. Is what they were used for. Don't need them. So why have them on there? Straddle the boom here so I don't fall on my ass. Shit. Okay, so I need 2 hands for this operation. This is a heavy enough plate that, you know what it can do? It can go to the ground. Hold on, guys. I can shimmy down this thing and get a hold of it on the other side as it slides off down the boom. grab that so the old ladder decides to pitch out on me. I got somewhere else to go. I'm getting older and I don't bounce very well. Yeah, this plate's heavy. This plate's pretty heavy, so here's where a guy's got to be careful. Just go like that, so he's not grabbing that heavy ass plate and then counterbalancing or tipping over on the ladder and eating shit down. Anyway, I got a phone call. Okay, so if we're looking at the early serial number configuration here, these are where the lines come right out where the stick is here and comes down here to the end where the tool mounts. So let's look at what we've got going on up here. So we're gonna have saw pressure. Saw pressures on the bottom. That one. So saw pressure and saw return. Saw pressure is going to be on the very bottom one. Saw return's the big one right above it. And let's see, what do we got? We know that they've got, we traced all this out the last time. It's been a while ago since I was here. So we know this one here, it's return on the top, and it's going to see what happened there. There's the saw. Hold on, let me turn this ring thing, my ring notification for the house camera. So I'm getting sick of everybody's home, so we turned the piece of shit off. I'm tired of it ringing on me. Anyways, see what happened here. See that hard line that they've got there? They had a hard line problem and they went around it, is what they did, instead of fixing it right. So what was that? See, I've already lost track. Saw pressure. See, that bottom one's supposed to be saw pressure, the one that they've went around, and then this top one right above it should be saw return. And so they went around the hard line they obviously had a problem with, and they went to here. Now what do they see? But that's return. That's correct there. Where's our pressure going? That's correct there, but they've got it backwards here. This line should be down here. I mean, you got to get this stuff right so people don't get all screwed up. Well, what are you guys doing? Oh, wait a second now. They've got that labeled pressure, and they've got the bottom one as return. Okay, so am I thinking right here? Saw pressure, saw return. Now out here on the end, saw pressure's on the bottom, and the pressure's on the top. That's backwards. This should be pressure. Okay. But, okay, so we need to trace this all back. Let's find out where they're going back here on the pumps. Okay, so we know they got this one here set up as the pressure. This one's return. That's how it's set up here. We got to trace it back here though. So we know this one down here, it's buried in the pine knobs here. It's supposed to be the pressure line for the saw. They got a P marked on there. What do these guys got going on here? What do they got going on here? Yeah, they've got this one here as the pressure. So let's trace it back. These need to go away. These were used as conduit for the wiring. Don't need them. Get rid of them. There's no sense in having them in there and causing more confusion. So this blue one is the one they've got marked as the pressure line. these here we can get rid of these here. They don't need to be there. So there we go. There's our pressure line. This would be the return. Okay, I got a Peterbilt with an SCR catalyst this bag. I gotta call those guys with the elastics of the VIN. So let's just see. We know these two here, we gotta see where these two are going. I mean, I think they're wiring conduits, what I think they are. But this is supposed to be the pressure line, okay? That they bypassed the line below it. The hard line below it was originally the pressure line. So let's, I don't know if I want to climb down. I'm gonna have to go clear back up there, and then I'll have to peek over the top and look at that blue stripe there on that hose they put in there to find my pressure line. I'm gonna have one of them studs stick right up my ass here in a minute, and no, I won't like it. I don't have the monkeypox either. Oh. I don't know if I didn't bring 6 bananas with me. That's what you got to do for monkeypox. You have to stretch out 6 bananas when you're in a crowded place with people, and put 6 bananas between you and the other person, so make sure there's no confusion with the 6 banana spacing requirement. Okay, let's get that clear. All right, that's a really nice slick piece of shit there to dump me on my ass. Okay, so this blue one is supposed to be the pressure. Where is it going to? In here. Oh, it's even blue here. Holy shit. Okay. Okay. I mean, they're not using any of this stuff. This stuff here, I would take it off and cap it and get it out of there. Why have that shit hanging off the back end of this thing? Okay. So that's going right here to this valve block. Okay. Let's go over to our book and look at the valve block. Okay. Which is going to be back here. Valve block. So we would be looking at this valve block. This is going to be, so we're looking at this end. Okay. Yeah, boom manifold right there. This would be the back of the boom. This is our saw case drain manifold here. Shear close saw pressure. Okay, so they're showing an arrow going to the top section, right? Shear close saw pressure. Wait a second. Shear open saw return would be this one. And the line right next to it is going to be, it's hard to say. So it's going, let's take the book closer to the action here. That way we can match up what we're looking at here. Ah! So is this 5419 and up? Is that the right? 5419 and up. 5398. 5397. Wait a second. That's the wrong serial number there. 5419. Well, where are the early serial number? Wonderful. So they're not showing the early serial number. Let's read about this. Pressure, serial number 419 above. Oh, serial number 5418 and below. So we're pulling hoses off. There was a lot of functions and T's added in for the processor head, which they're not going to use. And I said, why have all that shit hanging off the back end here and adding to the confusion and all this conduit line. And the return's supposed to be here, okay, instead of here. I mean, they've got the pressure hooked to the valve manifold correctly, but we're gonna put stuff the way it's supposed to be. That way, if I'm not around and this machine breaks down on the job somewhere and somebody else comes along and they're looking at the book, they're not spending hours trying to figure out who's jerry-rigged this thing and plumbed everything backwards. Let's do it right. So, we're removing hoses that we don't need. What is this one here doing? See, it's going to clear up the boom. We don't even know what that's doing there. But these two here were used as conduit, just like I was telling you. They go up. They were used as conduit for the wiring, and they're going right here on each side. So we're going to knock these loose from here and pull those clear out of there. There's no sense in having those in there like that. I got this one capped. I think this is another one here that needs to go away. What is this one here doing? What is this one? I think it's this one here I'm looking at. No, it's going clear to the top. What is this one here going to? I'd say probably get rid of this one here too. Don't need it on there. But we might have to remove a couple different hoses to get to that one. So that's okay. I'm gonna get rid of these two conduit lines going up to the boom. So let me get a punch and a hammer and knock those fittings loose, because does this plate come off here, or what the hell's the deal? What is this holding in here anyway? Oh, these are holding these bulkhead connectors in, I think. Is that what those are doing? I think that's what those are doing. Well, that's easy then. We'll just take the bolts out and pull them out of there. All right, guys, so we're so busy trying to get this thing. Let's tell you what we've done. Okay, nothing on the head worked at all. So what we got working is we got the arms in and out. That would be your gather, okay? Or no, that's your bunch base, bunch rod. We got all that working, everything you can think of. Yeah, man, people in their damn trash laying everywhere. Everything you can think of. This guy, I don't know. He had everything just plumbed backwards and just an absolute disaster. So what we did, we cleaned all this up. All these piles of hoses, all this stuff, it's all out of there. It's so much cleaner. We're on the road to success. Let me show you how this system works. Open this up. I'll show you the pumps and the valves and all that good stuff. The problem we're having right now is when we hook the saw head up, okay, that hose to the pressure line going to the saw head, then our leveling doesn't want to work. It tries, when you run the leveling button, it tries to run the saw. So the other day, this is where we check all our pilot pressures right here. So you got 5 pumps on this thing. You've got a left propel pump, a right propel pump, which would be these two, okay? I don't remember which one's left and right. I'm kind of guessing this is left and this is right. Yeah, because all those hoses are going to that side. Actually, this is the right side of the machine, because the finals are back there. So this would be the right one, I think. Or this would be the left one, this would be the right one. Anyway, all these are, all of them except for this one up here are variable displacement. These are variable displacement pumps. Closed center, pressure compensated pumps. Okay, that means that they're load sense, run off a load sense system. So the way that this leveling system works, and what we've got going on and what we fixed, let's go ahead and open this up too. We're gonna have to need to be in here. to take a bungee cord or something and tie this one back. It's very annoying. Okay, so on the leveling circuit, you've got this thing called a leveling saw valve. It's right here. There's 3 coils on this valve. Okay, and what we found the other day, and what they're doing is this pump right here. This is your auxiliary pump. This pump here, let's see, the discharge line from this pump should be going right into the bottom of this valve, in which it is. Okay, what they're doing on this thing, this auxiliary pump, when the saw function is being used with the combination of these solenoids and valves, what it does, it combines the flow, because it's kind of hard to explain. There's 3 ports on the other side. There's an A port, which is the oil that comes from the auxiliary pump when the saw function is on, and that oil coming from that pump will go through this valve, and then it'll come over here and combine right here on the auxiliary valve to the saw head. They're combining the flow. What they're combining the flow with is one of these Lindy pumps, these are the Lindy pumps right here. One Lindy pump runs this VW18 valve right here, and one runs this VW14 valve. I can't remember if it's a VW or MW. This is a VW18, this is like an MW14. But this one up here, usually it has an auxiliary tool stick. I think this one down here does some swing and some other function, but one of them is hydraulically proportional pilot controlled, and this one's electric over hydraulic pilot proportional controlled. So there's a lot of things in play here, but what's going on, I told the owners, I was thinking about this, because when you run your leveling circuit, well, let me explain to you what we ran into. Okay, let me explain the coil situation here. Let's start out with the dash switch. There's a switch on the corner post in the cab. You turn it on. Okay? That's the saw switch. And that energizes all 3 of these coils at the same time, blocking off certain ports and opening certain ports. Okay? And it actually latches a relay in the cab, the saw relay. And in that relay, let's come over here. What we found out the other day, we didn't know that you had to turn that switch on. I didn't know that. Because, as you'll see on this relay right here, this relay has got a wire in the center. Okay, when you see a wire in the center, that means that's a normally closed relay. And then when you're actually, whatever you're activating is open and disconnecting the power. That means this one's going to have power on it in its normal position. And when you flip a switch, whatever function you're doing, you're opening that circuit. So when you hit the leveling button, what it's doing is takes the oil away from the saw head and puts it to the leveling circuit. And solenoid 17 on that block, solenoid 17, when it's in the leveling mode, it blocks off the 4,500 psi relief path and opens up the 2,500 psi relief path for the leveling circuit. And solenoid 17 is, well, let me get back to that in a minute. Okay, but what we found here is we were getting no constant power. So what happens is when we figured out that you have to turn that switch on for this to function correctly, then that basically, once that relay in there latches, it sends constant power to that. So you've already got a ground. And then once you hit the leveling button, basically what you're doing, you're opening the contact on this relay and taking power away from solenoid number 17 and 18. So when you hit the leveling button, what you're doing is you're closing off the 4,500 psi relief path for the saw, and you're opening up the 2,500 psi relief, and then you're also you're closing off the A port. So the oil is only going to, from this auxiliary pump, it's only going to the leveling function. So, and this pump here in the book tells tells you it's biased fixed displacement. So the other day, coil, this is number 17, the one on the side of the block, kind of hard to see. This is number 19 on the top, and this is number 18 on the bottom. Well, number 19 was on the bottom and number 18 was on the top, and then the wires weren't being energized the way they were because they had them backwards there. So I fixed all that, but it's still doing it. So my thought process now is, I told them, I said, the only place that the two, if you run the leveling valve and the saw tries to work, the only place the two circuits mix is right here in this valve. It's got to be one of these cartridge valves or the spool stuck or something going on in here. So that's where we're at now on our troubleshooting process. We got this relay working, and the other thing I've got going on right now is solenoid 19. It's supposed to be powered up, and the wire between 19 is on the top. This wire right here is broken the loom somewhere, and that saw switch, when you turn that saw switch on, it should be energizing it, and it's not. So we've got to fix that. So anyway, that's what I'm doing right now, as I'm on the troubleshooting process to fix that, and then we'll see what we run into. But we've come a long ways. I mean, they were really excited when I got the gather or the bunch arms working. They've had 3 or 4 guys out here, they couldn't get the bunch arms to work. So I'll get this son of a gun. But to test this, I'm gonna have to uncap, because it was late that night when I left, and I just plugged that line, because once we had everything hooked up and we thought we had it, we fired it up and we ran the leveling, and the saw didn't work and all that kind of stuff. But is this a swivel? What is this here? Okay, that's a swivel fitting. And another thing that's kind of confusing me, I'm wondering if we've got a pilot line hooked up incorrectly somewhere, because what I'm not putting together in my head, even if that saw leveling valve was porting oil all the time, it has to go through this valve, which is hydraulically pilot controlled, which means you would have to push the button on the joystick to port oil to that machine head. So why did we have oil, even with the saw switch off, going to it? Something is hooked up wrong somewhere. A pilot line is hooked up wrong, shifting a spool, or a spool's stuck. There's something goofy going on. Okay guys, so I was tracing pilot lines out. Okay, so the VW18 valve is hydraulically hydraulically proportional controlled. And so the third valve back, let's see, 1, 2, 3 is going to be our auxiliary valve, right? So if you grab the pilot line coming off, well, just say the A port, right there is that green one. It goes into, so that would be the 4th one, the 3rd one, 2nd one, 1st one. That valve right there is that hose, that pilot line, and they're coming around to this valve block with no solenoids attached or anything. So how the hell would you ever, all the wires are ripped out of that, yeah, you're not going to have anything work. Yeah, that's not going to work, because it's not going to work. So we got to figure out what's going on there. Where is this other line going to? Must be like a tying into the pilot circuit somewhere. I can't even tell where it's going. Okay, so we got to figure out, well, we've got, for one thing, we don't have the right pilot controls for that valve to control anything. We got to figure out what's going on there. So let's go back over to Boom and Swing Hydraulics. I'm trying to find that valve. What does that valve do? Is there anything with that little valve? I don't see anything with that little valve in there. How about our pilot plumbing? Let's go, there was something in here for pilot plumbing. I think it might have been back here further. Valve functions, Boom Hydraulics, pilot hydraulics, okay. Okay, pilot supply from charge pumps. They're combining the charge pumps off both propel pumps to provide the pilot oil for this. SAE control layout. What about forestry control layout? I'm looking for this valve in here and the function of it, because I'm not seeing it. Let me do some research here, guys. Okay, here's the book. Here's your layout here, and it's not telling you whether it's forestry controls or what, or SAE controls. But as you can see here, so our tool A, tool B, the tool end is going to be right here. Okay, this is the tool rod. That's the main. So tool A, tool B, tool B is coming around. Yep, that's correct. It's on there right. And as you'll notice, the third spool back is our auxiliary valve. And there's no hoses going to that because that one there is going to be electric over hydraulic and uses that valve that they've got all the wires cut out of it. Is there anything else in here telling me about that valve back there? Yeah, I mean, you're never going to get anything to happen right out here without any pilot oil going to the main valve to shift the spool. Yeah, it's never going to work right. That's the swing hydraulic system. How about attachment hydraulics? Is there anything that's telling me about that valve in attachment hydraulics? But I noticed too that there's a coil, or you know, the coil's missing, or the plug is missing off the end of it. So, I see what's happening here. This is the supply to it for pilot oil to this valve. Why do they have this one capped? What does that do, you know? And then there was something identifying the valve, and the dumb fucks scratched it out. They've scratched it over. It's like unbelievable what people do to shit. But one of them has to be a supply of pilot oil to this valve. And then whenever you activate the solenoid, one of these solenoids, it sends pilot oil to that valve to shift the spool. And none of that shit is ever going to work if you don't have this hooked up. And what the hell is this for? So, a lot of this stuff is numbered and labeled. What's this say right here? Everything on this thing says OV for ground. I don't know why, but it's their way of labeling it, I guess. This should be labeled too. Let me... I kind of can see something right here. WR, can't really twist the wire and hold all that shit at the same time, but what's this say here? WRCW, I think that's wrist counterclockwise. Oh, and that's wrist clockwise. This is wrist counterclockwise. So that's not going to be it. See, there's an actual special harness specifically for, I know specifically for that function. Wait a second. I was reading in the book. That the pilot oil was controlled off of this block. Okay, we got something. I think I'm getting this figured out. Because the way it's set up right now, it's never going to work correctly. So where are the pilot lines coming? What coil? Let's go read that book again, because I remember it said something about coil number 3. This identified coil number 3 was on the auxiliary function. Somebody's just got everything all backwards and all plumbed wrong. It's just all screwed up. Okay, to install a bar saw or shear head bar saw shown. And I don't see a crossover relief on the boom here anywhere, do you? I don't see that incorporated into here. So anyway, let's get the coil thing and pilot lines figured out. Disconnect 8-pin connector behind cab, which I'm not really sure where that is. Plug intermittent saw or shear harness into disconnected plugs. Attach DIN connectors to pilot manifold aux section. Attach DIN connectors to pilot manifold aux section. Shear 67H. Okay, so 59B Barrett. Connect to solenoid 13 and 14. So if we're looking at these coils, 1, 2, 3, 13 and 14. Auxiliary valve, okay. One, two, three, 4. These two right here are these are the ones right here that we need to be on. These lines need to be over here on this. So where do they got these pilot lines running to? Is what I'd like to know. That would be this. It would be these two. Where are they going? Am I on the right one? It's really hard to tell. Should be like 1, 2, 3, 4 down. 1, 2, 3, 4. It's hard to tell, man. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah. I was grabbing the right one. Where's this one here? Boy, it's hard to tell. Well, yeah, shit, this is all going to the wrong shit here. Let me figure this thing out. I can't do this and hold this camera. Well, maybe I can stick this camera in here and see, figure out where these are going. Work around all these condenser lines and all this other shit in here. Yeah, there'd be the 4th line down. That's going. I'm grabbing this hose right here. Where is it going to the right one? I can't tell where this thing's going. I almost need to wrap a zip tie around it so I can see it on the other side once I get to where my arm is. I can't tell. So here we go. This is this function here. Am I grabbing the right hose? 1, 2, 3, no. 1, 2, 3, 4. Oh, it's this one here. I see. It's not even that one going over there. So it's this one, 1, 2, 3, 4. It's this one here. and it's looping back into the bulkhead. Wait, it's not going to anything. There you go. It's not going to anything. Okay. That one needs to go over to our, I bet, the other one. So let's look at the other side of that, huh? There's one of them that needs to be on the right port. Pilot lines are all mixed up. That's part of the problem. Where's this other pilot line going off the other coil going to? Let's see here. 1, 2, 3, 4. It's going to be the one right beside this one. No. Wait a second. Oh boy, it's hard to. 1, 2, 3, 4. So it's this one right here beside it, and it's going around here, and it's capped. There's our problem. There is our problem. Okay. We got to take these pilot lines they've got off over here on this valve they've got, and they need to be plumbed to our auxiliary 3, our aux valve here. That is part of our issue right there. Those are plumbed incorrectly. So let me get busy doing that. Yeah guys, we're making good progress. We actually got the saw spinning and extending. So those pilot lines were the problem. I took the pilot lines off this valve. This is not a factory thing. This is something they added on there. So we took those pilot lines off, capped those, and then took the pilot lines that were here and put them to where they're supposed to go, and now that's working. We're having a problem with the retract on it, and we also solved another problem. Our other problem that we had, like I told you, the leveling wasn't working when the saw head was plumbed to the head. And I'll show you here in a while, but I sent the boys, they're going to another yard that has some old equipment laying around. The cartridge valve, we pulled the I've got one in here, I've got a good one in here. But the cartridge valve, the spool and everything was gone and broke off, and you can tell it was intentionally done. This guy, I don't know if he was trying to get more flow out of the system or what, and he was probably a flatland logger and wasn't using the leveling. It's probably what he was. And he wanted more flow and he took it, I don't know. So the other thing is, on the return line, we're trying to plumb it correctly because he had it plumbed to here. There's a 45 and a 54, I think, or 58 PSI return ports. And this guy just seemed like he just stuck anything anywhere. You know, just who gives a shit, stick it on there, you know, and it's not where it goes. There's 2 different PSI return ports for a reason. I got this loose, and I'm hoping that the O-ring boss plug that I've got, I need to cap off the old one because it's already teed here. Hopefully the boys come back with some good news and find the cartridge valve, I hope. I got it loose enough to get my O-ring boss plug, I think. I think I got the right size here. Somebody will say, oh, the oil everywhere. You've never worked on an excavator or a Temco or anything like that. I'll tell you that. If you think, you ain't got a clue. I think I got the plug that fits it. I do. We're in business, man. We are in business. So these plugs, I'm going to show you something else the guy sent me. I'm gonna keep that and throw that in my toolbox. So these plugs here, I got 4 of them in a sack. The John Deere mechanic named Rudy in Iowa. I'll show you what else he got me. He sent these to me with a letter thanking me for the video, so I want to give a shout out to Rudy. Really appreciate it, Rudy, for what you did there. See, I'm gonna have to just use the old pliers, I guess, because I can't get nothing else in there. How was I on that before? Okay. I don't know if I can get an end wrench on there and try to give it a little bit more. I think it's actually inching 7/8. What is that? 1 3/4 doesn't fit it. Must be inching 7/8. I'd like to get a little more on it if I could. That's pretty tight. All right. Okay, so we've solved a lot of problems on this thing. Wiring, plumbing, hydraulics. I think once we get, so we've got all the things plumbed. Now we've got that leveling valve. I got to run a wire from the relay in the cab to energize that. Number 19 solenoid. And then the only thing we'll have to do is I got to get this return line plumbed where it's supposed to be. So if you look at the service manual, the oil flows out of the A port of the saw leveling valve over here, and then it comes over to right here, this elbow going in the auxiliary valve port on this valve block. Okay, we were isolating things a minute ago and we capped this off right here going to the saw head, and everything, the leveling, everything worked. That's because all the oil was going straight through because that guy had the cartridge valve out of it like a knucklehead. But we need to take the return port. These are the B ports, these are the A ports. So we need to go and plumb our return line into this A port back here is what we need to do next. So that's the next process.